Stugotz, you have heard me for a while at ESPN railing against a corporate partner. As soon as Dana White got there, I had problems with him as he navigated the whole ESPN labyrinth extraordinarily well to get to the top of the food chain. And now he is, with the help of Disney and others, throwing a bunch of fighters into the meat grinder, mostly minority fighters, desperate, terrible lives, terrible benefits, but the fighting business is gross. It's just so profoundly dirty, and they're all disposable bodies. You think football, they've got unions. Like, they've got player protections. Fighters don't have any protections. It's just corporate power. We will crush you. Crush all of you. Doesn't matter how much you're worth. We'll give Conor McGregor a few paydays here and there to disguise it, but it's awful. Fighters sleeping in their cars, like just dreaming and having a terrible employer as the employer makes a ton of money as a business. Great business, terrible employer. The fighters are abused. And they've got no choice because Dana White is correct when he says, go start your own league. See how that works out.
They could form a union, right? Their own union.
No.
Why?
Not really.
Not
because
in the UFC.
He's not going to allow it.
Not strong enough? He won't allow it?
He says he will not allow it.
Right.
Not as easy. Like, it's not as easy as a wink and a smile and just saying something. Like, there are fights that need to be fought, and nobody cares about this. The fighting business isn't something that anyone cares about. People are probably tired of hearing me talk about it. But Francis Ngannou, somehow, he's a legitimate draw. There's no disputing this. Dana White, nobody seems to care that Dana White has lost a money machine and a heavyweight of the highest order, the best he's got. Don't want to pay him. Don't want to give him rights. He wants equity. He wants things. No, thank you. No, go. Do it on your own. And so he does. He's doing it on his own. And I don't know if he's going to succeed, but he does now have equity in a fighting partnership deal, and he's got more power than he had, and now he will learn whether his brand can make money elsewhere. It would have made Dana White and Disney a lot of money if he had fought John Jones. Are you kidding me? Jesus Christ, what a monster fight that would have been. But Dana White wasn't negotiating about dollars. He was negotiating about taking the power away from his independent brands that can actually make money, because the money needs to be made by Disney and Dana White and UFC and the people who run this dirty, dirty, dirty business. I root for Francis Ngannou, but I rooted for LeVar Ball to go up against the system as well, because it's hard to go up against the system. Whether Dana White likes it or not, he is now the man. He is the mainstream. He's always prided himself on being the gutter, but now he's corporate. He is the top of the food chain. Can't be fired. Can hit his wife and not be fired because he's too powerful. He's too good at grounding the bodies to dust in the name of profit. But his heavyweight left. That guy is a monster money draw, and he let him go in the name of business with, hey, sayonara. Go ahead and try it yourself. I've got a monopoly. No, Bellator, all these other games, they're not my game. I've got Disney's backing here. I'm bigger than anybody. If you don't fight here, you don't matter the way that you matter here.
And he's probably right. I'm wondering, is there a fighter that could leave UFC and make it on their own, where with 100% confidence they have enough backing, their name, their brand is big enough where they could sustain their own the UFC and formally.
Well, Jake Paul and Conor McGregor and some of these freak show, sideshow things seem to be making a dent, but Dana's laughing as if he's not threatened by the Pauls, who have made a mockery of fighting by not being among the best, but making money the way the best, or more money than the best do, and advocating for fighters in a way that he does not.
The other thing, too, is you're looking at the UFC in its prime division, the heavyweight division, which is the baddest of all the baddest men on the planet. Francis Ngannou was that guy. There has never been somebody in the UFC to be the reigning champion to play out or fight out his contract and say, all right, I'm a free agent. I'm out. I'm not doing this. They offered him to be the highest paid heavyweight fighter of all time. But it was like Dan said.
No, but it's 3 fights. It's two
Right.
it's two against John Jones, one against Stipe.
Stipe.
They were undervaluing what those fights would have brought in as headliners.
100%. I think the deal they've been reporting, a bunch of people in the MMA space have been reporting that the deal fell through not because of financial terms, but because of the power that Francis wanted to fight for fighters, to have more of a say when it comes to the powers that
he
be
wasn't
in the
negotiating
UFC.
money. He was negotiating rights. Like, he is trying to, in a sport that will not allow him to unionize, he was trying to negotiate benefits for fighters and was told to go bleep himself.
Yeah, and now he will serve on PFL's advisory board to represent fighter interests, and he's also been named chairman of PFL Africa. Coincidentally, this is the same promotion, PFL, that Jake Paul has taken a share of and has teased a foray into mixed martial arts. And he sent out a video welcoming Francis to the promotion.
This is also an MMA exclusive deal that allows Francis to go out and box the likes of Tyson Fury for a super fight, Deontay Wilder for a super fight. But his free agency hasn't been easy. It's been a year of him being a free agent where he's gone to different promotions, Bellator, ONE FC over in Asia, the UFC again trying to get a deal done. And it looked like his profitability and the potential for him to sign a deal was going lower and lower and lower. All of a sudden today it comes out he's signing a massive MMA exclusive deal with PFL with the equity in PFL Africa, which is something that he's been wanting to do. His story, if you don't know Francis Ngannou's story, is incredible. Like, he left Cameroon at 20-something years old, was trying to immigrate into France. They took him out, put him in the Sahara Desert 7 different times. He managed to fight through all that stuff, and basically homeless guy coming into fights and trying to work his way up. Somebody saw him in the UFC, and his star turn was there, but his story is incredible.
Dana's never been afraid to get rid of really productive fighters, no matter their success in the sport. A super heavyweight, the ilk of Francis, is a massive, massive draw. And he said, no, this is a guy that, pound for pound, Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, was in that conversation as best pound for pound fighter. And they worked out a trade with one championship and got back Ben Askren.
It's an interesting time in that business. I cannot possibly articulate to the audience how dirty the fighting business is. Boxing was its original incarnation, but boxing does not have the present backing that this entity does because,
well, now it's its own publicly traded company, joining forces with Vince McMahon's WWE. And you look at Dana and you look at Vince, you see two of the most successful capitalists that have squashed any union attack. They're Magic and Bird of doing that. Like, it's crazy.
The other interesting thing, too, is PFL is on ESPN, right? You can see a lot of the PFL fights on ESPN on Friday nights. Obviously, they're going to do pay-per-views for these massive fights, but they've got stars in their own right in PFL. Kayla Harrison is one of the greatest mixed martial artists that we've seen. She just hasn't been at UFC yet, but she's incredible. Like, they've got a stable of fighters there that can rival people in the UFC.
Tony, will you go out of your way to see Francis fight?
Absolutely.
But he's not fighting the best anymore.
That's
a big difference, right?
It is, and the people in PFL, as far as the heavyweight division, are not John Jones, Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa, people of a massive name in the UFC. But I'll lock in on a Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou just melee, or Deontay Wilder. Like, that's what draws me in more so than his MMA stuff.
And to Tony's point, he really doesn't have to go that far out of his way to watch Francis. They're on the very same platform that the UFC is on. You can catch their cards.
Are you guys interested? And I don't know that you are. These are the pieces of sports business that are fascinating to me. And I've told you before that for whatever the reason is, we do not do a very good job in the trades, even though there are many people who make a living covering the media business, covering the business of sports media well. Are you guys interested in, hey, look, Peacock's got a football game all of a sudden streaming, an NFL playoff game, and that's going to exist somewhere that's going to change where I can find it. There are going to be football games being played, and I'm going to have to, change the way that I've watched football all my life. And UFC is now, this part fascinating to me as somebody who emerged from Disney and saw the moves they were making. Bob Iger has wrestled back CEO of Disney. Bob Iger, Disney is now in business with Vince McMahon and Dana White, union busters, guys who don't want the fighters to have rights. And Dana White has all the power in that relationship because he produces his product and then ESPN merely gets to air it gets to rent it, but they're not in charge of editorial decisions. They're not in charge when Trump and Kid Rock are sitting next. Dana White has all the power there, and Disney sits to the side of that and is like, yep, please just keep giving us cash, and we will take the cash off the non-unionized bodies thrown into the wheat chipper or in the wood chipper or sleeping in their cars, and we won't give you the actual fight that you want. It's Ngannou. You're not going to get to watch him fight. Dana White's going to fight with John Jones. You want to see John Jones? Sorry. John Jones is going to miss years of his prime as the best fighter we've ever seen because John Jones has substance problems and John Jones also doesn't have any contractual freedom.
The other thing, too, that made Dana's idea of letting Francis walk in free agency, too, is he knew that he was eventually going to take John Jones and put him in the heavyweight division. He was going to be fighting for a championship, right? Like, that's the monster fight, the biggest fight in MMA history would be Francis versus John. But it's a lot easier to let Francis go when you've got the GOAT in your stable and you're like, all right, I'm just going to trot him out and everything's going to be okay.
It's an unreliable GOAT, though.
It is, but still, like, whenever John Jones gets into an octagon, you can guarantee that there's going to be millions of people watching.
In sacrificing...
If he gets in,
you
though.
can't guarantee that he'll get to the octagon.
But if he gets in there...
But Francis is sacrificing a legacy hit here because he's going to a promotion that doesn't have the same level of competition. But in doing so, he may one day provide leverage for those fighters because Dana approaches these negotiations knowing that he does not have a true competitor within mixed martial arts. He'll compete with boxing and other big pay-per-view events, but he's never had to worry about legitimate competition. If you bring in Jake Paul's star power and Francis's talent, the fact that everyone can point to him as a pound-for-pound top guy right now, certainly the best heavyweight in the sport, that is a certain challenge that he's never had to deal with before. And if they get eyes and bring in legitimate competition, we'll see what happens with the TV broadcast money because they're presently both ESPN properties at this time, but maybe not for long. Then maybe what Francis is fighting for can actually make some inroads.
Chris Cody, why are you looking at your father and laughing the entirety of this segment? Is it because he hasn't said anything?
Well, he has said, if you've really been listening, he makes noises. You've heard a lot of Have I? What do you mean when you're opening your canister right there, you just did it again? I mean, speak for yourself.
Do you have any thoughts?
No.
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.